I think Andrew Fastow was one of the most entertaining as well.
Incredible.
Just because when he held up the thing he got, he held up the award he got for being the CFO of the year in 2001, or sorry, in 2000.
I forgot.
And then held up his prison card and said,
I got this for the same exact thing. I got this for doing
So
the same
wild.
thing. That story is incredible. I actually watched the documentary once I came back. Yo, tune into that.
I'm going to tell the story about the airplane, which gives a perfect example. So he says, there's a spectrum of rightness, and you can be right and still be wrong, which sounds like crazy, but I'm going to explain what it is.
Yeah.
So the 737 MAX, the Boeing airplane, he gave this example, and it's, I think, the best example for someone to understand. 737 Boeing MAX, there's a spectrum of like up to code with the FAA regulations of a plane, the minimum requirement you need, and then it goes all the way over to the safest plane you could possibly build. And everyone builds their plane somewhere in between there. Some shade safer, some shade closer to the FAA regulations, but the farther you get this way, the more expensive it is to build the plane because of all the extra stuff you have to add into it. Well, the 737 MAX met every single requirement that FAA requires to build a plane. It checked every box on safety and all the stuff that you need to put a plane in the air.
At a minimum.
At a minimum. So it was up to code. It was right.
It met every regulation.
It was right. There was nothing wrong with what 737 Boeing did. Or I should say what Boeing did. But they built that plane way over here near that line. And most people know what happened. Well, the 737 MAX crashed twice, both of their planes, and killed 300 and some odd people.
Crazy.
So it's like Boeing stock dropped and everyone thought Boeing, what an asshole,
Nobody
blah, blah,
went
blah.
to jail for that.
Yeah, people went to jail for sure.
I thought they were just okay.
Well, maybe not because
I remember
if it's
Andrew
right, it's
Fastow
right.
went to jail,
yeah.
but then they were just fined or something. I could be wrong.
Well, like he said, you can be right and still be wrong.
Right. He had a great quote, and I can't remember what it is. I wrote it down, but basically his entire message was, you can go by any regulation you want, because everything he did when he worked for Enron was by regulation.
Yep.
He just worked the loopholes so well, but everything he did was signed off by lawyers.
Yep.
It all met regulation.
By the bank,
but
by
he
everyone.
was doing it in
He was doing it with the
unholy
wrong intent.
way. Yeah. His intentions were bad, and because of that, that company went from being one of the top 500 companies to bankrupt in a month, which is fucking insane.
Crazy.
And he went to jail for that, which is crazy, because I still kind of don't understand how you go to jail when everything you did was signed off by lawyers. Mm-hmm. That's, I feel, the point of that protection. But my favorite thing was his comparison of what he did to the Talmud. The Talmud is the book of followings for the Jewish religion, and I might not be saying this 100% correct, but this is what I took from it. But there's pretty much, it's like the 10 Commandments, but there's like 200 of them.
340,
and there's you live by all of these guidelines, but the last one and most important one is be holy, because you can do the right thing all the time or do what you're supposed to do, but if you're not doing it with holiness in mind, or the betterment of everyone, or looking out for everyone, then what's the point?
So to wrap that up, you can follow all the guidelines for your business, for life, for whatever it is, for marriage, but if you're doing it with the wrong intent, that's why Andrew Fastow went to jail, because of the wrong intent of why he was doing it. So then we had the magician. He was cool as shit. Chaz Palminteri, none of us actually saw.
No, I missed it.
We didn't see his performance, which kind of sucked. Tom Ellsworth, it's hard to really talk about what he said because it was so specific. But the guy, I think on paper it said that he's collected, funded, and sold $1.5 billion worth of businesses.
Yeah.
So he started like multiple businesses and built them up, and then he was CFOs and COOs of multiple businesses, and they sold and had huge exits. So I think he's worth more than PBD. He's worth some serious dough. and he is unbelievable, dude. Unbelievable.
He's like Jarvis of the business world. I swear to God. You're like, Ellsworth, how do I increase my money that I'm making every month? And he's just like, boom, do this, and this. See ya.
Moving screens,
crazy,
pulling screens
bro.
on, dragging
He's
this over here.
He's literally a business genius.
Yeah, he's a...
His Connect price was more than everybody else's except Entertainment. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Yep, the app.
That's a cool ass app too. And then the most entertaining speaker, although we didn't get much from him, was Robert Kiyosaki.
Oh, yeah.
And the reason we didn't get much from him is because he's speaking to billionaires. His advice was for billionaires. One of his advice was like, buy, what was it, the 5 Gs?
Yeah, 5 Gs. Gold. Grub, which is food. Ground, which is real estate. Shit. There were 2 more that I have written down.
Grub.
I have them written down.
We'll find it. But so his advice is buy the 5 Gs: gold, ground, grub. So I think someone asked him, he's like, what do you mean by gold? Buy gold? Like invest in gold? And he's like, no. I
bought a gold mine.
I bought a gold mine.
Oh, hold up. Gold, ground, which is real estate. Grub, which is food. Gas, and guns.
Okay, yeah. So then they're like, oh, invest in gas companies? And he's like, no, like buy an oil refinery. And we're like, oh, okay, let me put that in my notes. I'll go look at one next year. And it's like, buy food. How do you invest in food? He's like, yeah, I got Wagyu beef steaks and fucking
I bought
Wagyu
the
beef
largest
cows
farm.
and I sell their sperm. We're like, Robert, we're like, bro, I don't have that money. What are you talking about, bro? And then someone even asked about ammo, and he's like, no, I buy it by the pallet.
Yeah, I buy
We're
it
like,
by
all
the
right, Robert,
fucking
thanks for
pallet.
the advice. We'll use it in 10 years from now when we have $1 billion. But he was hilarious.
He
the
was
way he was talking
hilarious.
shit about Joe Biden. And, bro, he says all the shit that I say all day that everyone calls me a conspiracy theorist for.
He was an interesting cat for sure. And he was even more interesting in the CEO session the day before when it was, because he spoke at the first night when you guys weren't there.
Yeah.
And it was the same thing, just going off on everyone.
Joe Biden and shit.
The government, Joe Biden, fuck this place, fuck that place. You guys are this, these guys are this. Like just.
So the craziest thing he said was his prediction. He predicted
Yes.
1 week ago
Yes.
that the stock market is going to crash
Yep.
in 2 weeks.
He said it'll be down by the end of September. In the
He
next
also
2 to 4
predicts
weeks.
that Donald Trump, if he gets arrested, there will be a civil war.
You know what stat I saw on this? Figgity flapjack fact. Put it in here. You ready?
I'm ready.
Over 50% of Americans believe there'll be a civil war before 2050.
Oh, there needs to be.
In the next 30 years.
2050, bro. I'm ready. Get it at me.
And civil war is such an oxymoron. But anyway.
You know how stupid a civil war would be? It's going to be... Whatever, I'm not going to get into it. We'll get fucking taken
we're
down
not
if
going
I
to talk
start
about war
on this rant.
while we're reviewing the vote. But anyway, he said that he thinks there'll be a war if they put Trump in jail, which I don't think they're going to put Trump in jail about Mar-a-Lago and what they found and stuff like that. But yeah, his whole thing was, and this is a good point of like people. I posted a video saying why I spent $11,000 on the CEO ticket. If you are a W-2 worker and you work at Staples and you're a general manager, you work at a restaurant, and you're a general manager or you're a server, and you're making 50 to 60 grand a year, you can't go to this conference and learn from these people because you can't implement it into a business if you don't run a business. You can't change the leadership if you're not leading anyone. Like that money would have been terribly spent on someone if they didn't have a business or a sales team or something to lead and change and do.
Right.
So that's a great example of like, dude, Robert Kiyosaki has $1.2 billion in debt. I can understand. I can take what he says and break it down and like why he says it and the systems and procedures and processing of how he got to that level. But the shit he says, 1% of the entire people there can actually relate to.
Right.
Buy an oil rig.
Right.
Buy pallets of ammo. You know what I mean? Like that's stuff that's he's so
Next
we're
level.
on step 4. He's on step 180.
Right.
Like it's just
We're learning how to run. He's telling us how to fucking skydive out there.
insane.